Welcome everyone, and welcome to the webinar that looks at what we can learn from the greatest chefs out there about building successful websites. My name is Ioana Negulescu. I'm head of creative innovation at Articulate Marketing. I've been at the agency for a bit over 10 years, and I lead the team that delivers websites. So I lead the team of designers and developers. I work closely both with creatives. I'm a designer myself by training, and also with clients. But I actually believe that strength comes from a multitude of different skills and also hobbies. And I do have a very serious hobby that kind of went out of control. It is food. And it has gone a little bit more than just in my kitchen. I sometimes do restaurant pop-ups and events, and I also write about food. And I think gastronomy and website projects have a whole lot in common, and the purpose today is to share my experience. I lived in Vienna for 8 years, and this is a screenshot of what my Google Maps looks like. I tried to label the various places based on different things. The pretzel emoji places are places I've been to that I liked. The green ones are places I saved when I was researching what restaurants to check out before I moved to Vienna. The ones with a heart are Michelin star restaurants and so on. But in reality, whenever I open this map, I feel immediately overwhelmed because ultimately every single pin on this map is competing for exactly the same decision. So what I end up doing every single time is going to the same 5 places. See, your buyer is on that map right now. You are one option among your competitors, and your site has a very serious job to do. It is, on the one hand, your brand's home and also your sales engine. And you need to give your visitors a compelling enough reason that you are the right choice for them. So ultimately, your website serves 2 purposes: communicate who you are and also communicate why someone should choose you over a competitor. So one of the things that you can do right now is open your site next to 3 competitors and put yourself into the shoes of your buyer. Why would someone choose you over them? Think about it objectively, not subjectively, and think about imagine what their thinking process would be when looking at your website and looking at your competitors' websites. The photo on this slide comes from Juanito de Barranco. It's a restaurant in Lima. It is more than a restaurant. It's an institution. It is 89 years old or something along those lines. And they serve a jamon sandwich. It's the same sandwich that they've been serving the entire time. It has homemade ham, an onion and chili salsa, and a slice of bread, nothing else. They do one thing. The pisco sour next to it came with a smiley face drawn on it, which I suppose was not there 90 years ago when they opened. But the cool thing about this place is that it is an old spot. The walls are covered in posters. It has a bit of an Unreal vibe almost. It is in the middle of a very, very hip neighborhood in Lima. The sandwich is great. Probably if I really thought about the flavors, it's not the best sandwich I've ever had. But to me, in that context, it was the best sandwich I've ever had. And the reason for that is because of the entire experience around that specific sandwich. The smiley, the vibe, imagining Anthony Bourdain eating there some years ago when he went to Lima. And your site is a little bit like that as well. It's the whole meal, it's the whole experience. It's not just copy, it's not just design. It's a feeling, and there are so many details that you can leverage, and you can design an experience of moving through your website. So a lesson you can take today as well is definitely focus on designing deliberately for your audience and make sure you have a very clear user journey. Every good menu tells you what's coming. So here's ours. We've got 3 courses today. 1, aim for memorable. And here we'll talk about why less beats more and why bold wins. 2, find your signature dish. So how the best stand out. And 3, choose the right kitchen. So who do you trust to build it? The journey and the kind of choreography of a website is a whole separate meal, and that is another webinar you can sign up for around how to design a website like the most epic event, where we'll be looking at user journeys, website architecture, creating moments of delight and more. And you can sign up for our webinars on articulatemarketing.com/webinars. So let's look at aim for memorable. Less is more effective has become a common occurrence for my slides, because it is something so deeply important. When you have too many options, you immediately have cognitive overload and feel choice paralysis. People freeze, they delay, or worse, they leave. There is a study with jams sold in a supermarket. So they basically set up a tasting table where you could taste everything for free and you could buy whatever you wanted. One of the tables had 6 jars and one of the tables had 24. The big one, so the one with 24 jars, pulled a lot more crowds. But actually it was the small one that sold. So the table with 6 jars sold 10 times better than 24. And this is particularly relevant in a B2B kind of environment, because options might look alike, stakes feel high, and the buyer is not an expert. Also think about a 200-dish laminated menu. What do you feel when you see it? Does it instill a bit of a sense of distrust and hesitation? Whereas a tight menu, does it show confidence and kind of a fast yes? I believe so. And I think the most important thing is to tighten your menu. Cutting is not losing, it is clearing clutter. And it's the best thing you can do. What do you recommend? Honestly, everything is good. I bet we have all heard this at one point or another. And it is honestly the most deflating answer that a waiter can give you. Because in reality, what you did by asking them that question is you asked them to help you make that decision, to make that decision easier for you. But actually what they did is they handed the decision back to you and have not helped curate that choice at all. And the best restaurants have a point of view. For example, the lamb is the reason why people come back to this restaurant. Also, that statement lifts everything else in the menu. It doesn't say everything else is bad, you should just go for the lamb, but it says we are confident enough to tell you what is our most popular dish. A recommendation is not a risk, it is actually a gift. And one of the things that you can apply to your website is curate so that people know what they have to read first. People spend 10 seconds on a website. How do you make them stay on your website longer? So by helping them find the right piece of information or make a choice faster, you are showing both empathy and respect to your potential buyer. The best plates aren't crowded. The best plates have deliberate elements. Nothing is there by accident. And there are 2 types of gastronomy, especially we're looking at fine dining here. There is classical gastronomy that still uses large white plates with a tiny little element in one little in the center or on the side. And there are restaurants that use smaller plates and play with color pattern. This is more the trend that I see more and more of these days. But in any case, it is always a considered design language. Sometimes there's space, sometimes there's a pattern, sometimes there are colors. It is always a choice. And restraint does not mean playing small. It's the most confident thing that a kitchen can do, to signal we know what we're doing. Garnishes. You know, I added this photo from a restaurant I visited. It's got two borage flowers. Obviously, the chef has the choice between using a borage flower or, let's say, a basil flower. But a borage flower has acidity, tastes a little bit like cucumber, whereas a basil flower, well, it tastes like basil. So again, even in the garnishes, even in the decorations, there is a deliberate choice. And the discipline is really around what to leave off so that your message gets processed and delivered to your potential buyer. So let your message breathe and shine and build a design language that is absolutely and 100% yours. Here's the honest truth. Probably you will forget most of this webinar by Friday, or even maybe by the end of the day today. Because this is how memory works, and there's nothing really we can do about it, and it is highly selective. But maybe you won't forget that I showed you a dish of blue fries on the right-hand side. Why? Because blue barely exists in food without artificial color. So by definition, it is surprising, especially this kind of, deep, bright cobalt blue. This blue powder is made from spirulina algae. So it is natural and healthy, another piece of information. Unlike the kind of blue artificial coloring that you would think of when you see this kind of shade. So using blue spirulina is not a gimmick. It's actually bold and it's considered, and it makes this particular dish stand out. But aside from this slide, aside from the potatoes per se and the blue spirulina, there is also not a single other slide in this presentation that has more than one image. So it stands out, it's different. There is also no other slide in this presentation that talks about a specific ingredient or specific ingredients to this level. And if I say I'm blue, da ba dee da ba da, can it be that you will remember this slide even more? And that is exactly the point of standing out. Studies clearly show that it is the different thing that survives in memory, and the samey thing goes away. So what you can do for your website is be different, be brave. Make sure you're not going for samey. Let's look at finding your signature dish. Curiosity is always something that I value deeply in gastronomy, in creative fields, in design, and in people in general. And being able to ask yourself, why do we do it this way? So kind of challenging assumptions, or even things like, can this be done? Is really amazing when everybody else out there is kind of running on autopilot. This is my friend's dessert taco, which started with a question, because it looks just like a taco. He asked himself if he can make a taco tortilla out of millet instead of corn. And the thing is, tortillas need a special process. It's a chemical process. He wasn't sure if millet would work, so he tried it out, and it did. But he pushed it. Every taco has a salsa. He added a salsa on his, again, dessert taco of tomatoes. It is tight by design in terms of dish. It has 4 elements only. It has millet, fig in 3 shapes, a coffee cream, and the tomato salsa. There's not a lot of chaos. It is just one core idea with very few elements that is explored really, really deeply. And this is the point, relentless curiosity, which he held to a disciplined idea. And the lesson that you can apply to your website is question your assumptions. Why does your site have to look the way you assume it should? What about seeing the world that is beyond your assumptions? Every restaurant has some conventions. Typically, you sit on a chair, or at least you sit on something. There is usually some form of table. You usually receive tools that you can use to eat. In some cases, you are told that those tools are going to be your hands, but they are still tools. Nobody reinvents the fork, and nobody should. It does the job, so why would you have to reinvent it? It's been doing its job since Renaissance, when it was invented, and fun fact, by Catherine de' Medici. In 2005, El Bulli was the best restaurant in the world. And the Adria brothers took the olive, which is effectively the most ordinary thing on a Spanish table, and somehow captures the DNA of Spain, and reinvented it. They used chemistry to extract the olive flavor into a liquid, and turn that liquid into a sphere using another chemical solution that created a film on the outside to contain the liquid. And the moment you take it, you eat it, it kind of pops, and you feel it all over your palate. These two brothers were super passionate about chemistry, and they also happened to invent molecular gastronomy, which is a concept that survived and moved away to so many other restaurants. Bravery is not throwing out the rules. It is keeping some things familiar and transforming others. Every website needs an impactful homepage, a clear navigation, and general signposting like CTAs and all of that. It needs a working contact page, an about page, and some content that explains what you do. So the lesson you can take further and apply it to your website is be bold in the design, not the plumbing. Keep how a site works, a homepage, a nav, an about, a contact. Back to olives. El Bulli's olives were recreated worldwide by so many other chefs, but everybody knew who they belonged to. It is so well known that that technique, and the olive especially, became really iconic. It was done with such perfection that, for example, for me, once I learned about the technique, I found that I would take away the charm of that discovery from Ferran Adria and Albert Adria if I did it myself. The lesson you can take to apply to your website is, if you crop the logo off a page, would anyone still know it's yours? Make sure they would. And the best place to be in is being the one others want to copy. Now let's talk about who you should work with and how you should look for the right people to build your website. I went to my first Michelin meal in 2016, and my partner had a mollusks allergy, so mussels, oysters, etc., which I, of course, mentioned when I booked the table. But by the time we sat down, all 8 servers that kind of came with different things knew about it. They told us that they replaced everything for him, and they told me that I would still get those ingredients, and that they would explain for every meal. So, really nice expectation setting, and kind of going above and beyond in terms of capturing a message, communicating it further internally in their team. And this is like the feeling of being understood, of saying it once, and it's absorbed and applied, is fantastic. So what you can do for your website is picking an agency that spends time to get to know you. There's nothing worse than feeling misunderstood or sensing a hidden agenda, but also an agency that talks about expectations on feedback, and that is willing and able to adapt to your style of feedback, to your style of communication, because all of this is really, really important when working on something that carries so much emotional weight. In all restaurants, the dining room is most of the time, hopefully, if it's a good restaurant that functions well, it is serene. But behind the scenes, there is pressure, there is precision, there is mess that you're not meant to see even in an open kitchen, because the prep happens before diners arrive. In a kitchen, so behind the scenes, there is experimentation, there is failure, there is focus, there's teamwork, new ideas, and always an internal feedback loop that challenges the thing being created. And good designers work exactly in the same way. They show you resolved options, they curate that choice for you so you don't feel overwhelmed, like mentioned earlier. They won't show you the chaos it took, because that is unnecessary information that takes away the focus. But if you want to visit the kitchen, you can, provided that you are not going to take a whisk and whip something up, or take a knife and chop up some meat and actually become a chef among them. And there should be chaos, because real brainstorming and exploration are often processes that carry a certain chaos, but designers know how to turn that chaos into order. And what I recommend you to do is trust the process and the team you hired. Because ultimately, the polished thing you see at the end comes from a lot of work that you don't see. And don't be afraid, of course, to ask if you want to see that work as well. The greatest restaurants rarely have the same menu all over again. They tend to evolve with the seasons, with what the kitchen learns, with what the staff, like the other chefs, pitch. And in reality, creative people do also need novel things, because it is the way we kind of function. But here we're talking about evolution, not reinvention, because that same great restaurant that puts out an updated menu will not have changed the interior design completely to match that new menu. So what you can do for your website is schedule a monthly or quarterly review, and evolve it one tweak at a time, so that it always stays up to date, so that it doesn't go out of date. Because the most common thing that happens with websites is you build it, you park it for a couple of years, and then you're frustrated because it doesn't actually work. But in reality, everybody tells me Apple is the greatest website out there. I hear it from a lot of clients, and I completely agree. Apple is an absolutely amazing source of best practices. But one thing that Apple does brilliantly is they never freeze the website. They always make tiny little tweaks here and there, so that they stay up to date. They communicate messages following new best practices, and I bet they do lots of testing and conversion rate optimization and user journey mapping and all of that stuff. But the cool thing that Apple do is they do it in a way in which you almost don't notice, because the design language evolves one tweak at a time. Before you meet our whole kitchen, what you can do, however, is chat to our head chef, Matthew, our founder, who has got over 25 years in B2B tech marketing. And he will spend 30 minutes with you talking about your website, where it could be braver, clearer, and more you. And he likes to share useful insights. You can book your session via this link on this slide here. Before I close, though, I will leave you with one more very important thing. I had this salad in Cartagena. It's one of the world's 50 best restaurants, Selele. And this restaurant focuses on celebrating overlooked Colombian, Caribbean ingredients. Of course, you eat with your eyes, and this dish is absolutely stunning. But of course, I then mixed it and I tasted it. And it was so surprising. There was so much flavor. There was so many different little elements that brought so much to every single bite. For example, it had cashew fruit, which I had never tried before. Not the cashew nut, but the fruit. It kind of tastes like quince and is also a bit floral like quince. And in that moment, I cried. In fact, this is quite common for me. I rate restaurant experiences based on whether they serve me one dish that makes me cry, because to me, that is an ultimate sign that it is a great meal. Not because I'm crazy, perhaps I am a little, but because I feel the emotions. It taps, like those dishes tap into my emotions. And what happens afterwards is that turns into a moment I will remember years later. So the final lesson of this webinar, this is the ceiling. Your website is not only there to inform or convert, but actually to make someone feel something. And I've probably made you a little hungry, but I also hope this webinar has made you a little braver. Thank you.